So imagine with me. Imagine that you are standing at the crossroads. And the crossroads is a place where there is a path before you, a path behind you, there's a path to your left and your right, and you're standing at this intersection. Now, you're in a safe place. You're not like in traffic, okay? Like imagine that you're in a forest or a desert. It doesn't matter where you are, but I don't want you to be mistaken that you are comfortable at the crossroads simply because the crossroads is not a comfortable place to be. When you are at the crossroads, it is a place where change happens. It is a place where you may decide, should I enter into this relationship? Should I leave this job? Should I recommit to what I'm already doing and level up my game and move forward? It is also the place where you can experience the kinds of changes that you would not wish for yourself or your worst enemy. Changes that have to do in the wake of a death, a divorce, a diagnosis, sexual assault, financial loss. I have been at the crossroads in my own life and in the lives of others more times than I can count. And I've found that there are patterns to these experiences that make them recognizable and even predictable. There are three things that I'd like you to consider about the time at the crossroads. The first is don't be at the crossroads alone. When you are at the crossroads making a big choice, be there with someone who knows you and loves you, cares about you, understands, has some understanding of the circumstances that you are facing. So don't be alone at the crossroads. The second thing to consider is to ask yourself, how are you growing at this particular time in your life? Are you in a pattern of growing in a positive way, in a healthy way, in a way that is life-affirming? Or are you growing in a way that is negative, that has become even self-destructive and leading toward patterns of addiction? So taking that inventory of your life at the crossroads, whether you are growing in a positive way or a negative way, when you know the answer to that, it can determine how you prepare yourself to move forward from the crossroads. The third thing to consider is to ask yourself, have I given this thing max effort? And max effort is a term that we use in the military that basically says, have you given this everything you've got? Have you given it 100%? So when I was the chaplain at the Marine Corps boot camp in San Diego, I talked with thousands of young men during those years, all between the ages of 18 and 21 for the most part. They would seek me out to talk about these experiences that they were having at the crossroads in their lives. And it was about a whole host of things. But there was a consistent theme in these conversations that they wanted to quit. They had come here with the dream of becoming a Marine, but now that they were at boot camp, it was so hard that they were having second thoughts. They were doubting themselves. And they came to the crossroads on this path behind them, this path of certainty behind them, and they were standing at the crossroads, and in that moment, they just wanted to back up and go home. And I told them what they already knew, that they were not drafted, that they freely chose to enter into the most rigorous training program that the military has to offer in the world, and they needed to give it max effort. They needed to give it to marksmanship, martial arts, drill, history, ethics, running, swimming, all of it. Max effort, 100%. And then, if you fail, and you need to go home, at least you will do so with your head held high, knowing that you have given it everything you've got. And I would rather you live with that kind of failure than live with the kind of regret that can haunt you for years afterward of never knowing if only I had done this particular thing and given it, what could I have been? If you're gonna go home, you're gonna go home having given it max effort. I knew about this from my own life because before I was in the military, before I was a chaplain, before I was even ordained or in seminary, I was in my 20s and I aspired to be a professional actress. And by my late 20s, I was making commercials. Tide, AT&T, Nike, not bad. But my childhood dream was to be a classically trained actress in New York City, in plays, not someone who woke up every morning straightening her hair and selling a lot of soap. So it didn't take me long to realize that my life by my late 20s did not make sense. I was making commercials and I did not own a television. And then I had a very important conversation. I was with my minister and I was at the crossroads. I knew that I had given this thing max effort. I knew that I was not growing in acting and I was ready to do something else, but I had no idea what that was going to be. And he asked a question of me that changed my life. He asked me, I keep wondering, when are you going to tell me that you're thinking about going to seminary? And the answer to that question was never. I am never, ever going to tell you that I'm going to seminary, because I felt like such a religious mutt who just asked far too many questions, not seminary material. So we were at the crossroads and he pointed sharp left. He was like, go to seminary. And I trusted him, still trust him to this day. I trusted him so much, I followed his advice, and I went down this path. Now here's the thing, people can be with you in the crossroads, but once you go down that path, you are on your own, because the map is not the territory, right? You need to walk that road by yourself to learn what you're gonna learn. And when I was there, I took that step on blind faith, and I happened to find my life's purpose. And while I was walking down that road, I saw how all these disparate threads of my life began to knit together. And I saw how in theater and in theology, there is the telling of stories for the purpose of transforming lives. So fast forward, I finished seminary, I become ordained, I serve a congregation for years. And I come to the crossroads once again. And this time, it was in the face of a diagnosis that came from my daughter. And when we found out what was going on, we knew that we needed to homeschool her. We needed to take her out of school. And that meant that I needed to leave ministry to be home with her. And so there I was at the crossroads once again. But this time it was really complicated because I knew I hadn't given ministry max effort. I mean, and I knew that I was growing in a positive way and I wanted to stay in ministry. And don't get me wrong, it was very difficult. I was really challenged, but I was challenged in a way that I cared about. I very much felt like I was in the right place, even though it was challenging. But then there was this other reality that my daughter needed me to stay home. So this is something that happens at the crossroads very often. You have these two realities that are equally true, and yet they conflict with one another. Two equaling true realities that conflict with one another. So I did what I knew I needed to do. I called someone into the crossroads with me, a mentor, a mother, a successful minister. And she told me, sometimes you can have it all, but not all at the same time. And so I left ministry. While all my same age peers were in the peak years of their professional development, I stayed home for an unforeseen amount of time. I didn't know if I'd ever get back. And that unforeseen amount of time ended up being 5 years. At the end of 5 years, my daughter was ready to get back into school. I was ready to get back into ministry. I was preparing for congregational leadership jobs because that's what I knew and I loved and I wanted to get back to. And I saw a LinkedIn message that said, "Have you ever considered being a Navy chaplain?" And I remember I laughed out loud. Because I thought, wow, this is how bad a social media algorithm can go wrong. Because there I was, a 42-year-old woman who had never done anything with public service, much less in the military, receiving a question, have you ever considered being a Navy chaplain? No, I have not. And yet, I looked into it, and 3 months later, after a rigorous interview and screening program, there I was at the Pentagon preparing to walk into a panel interview with senior officers who would determine whether or not I was going to be a Navy chaplain. I was the only female interviewee in my cohort, and I was standing there about to walk into this doorway, just waiting for it to open, and a female chaplain who had been escorting us around walked up to me and she said, "Are you nervous?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Listen to me. You have no reason to be nervous. They are looking for pastors. You are a pastor." And I knew she was right. But the thing that I want to tell you that I remember about what she said, because she said that, she dropped the mic, she walked away. The thing that really stuck with me is that how courageous it was, because I didn't know I was at the crossroads in that moment, but I must have had Crossroads written all over my face, because she walked right up to me and she asked that question. And she said what she said. And as soon as she said it and she walked away, the door opened and I walked into that room with calm confidence. I've been a Navy chaplain for the last 5 years, and I see myself as being on duty at the crossroads. Every day in my camouflage and my steel-toed boots, I am on duty at the crossroads talking to all kinds of people, of all kinds of faith and no faith at all, senior officers, junior enlisted folks. We talk when we're deployed on warships and are sitting in the dirt. And here's what I want you to know about the crossroads. You're gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. The crossroads is an incredibly uncomfortable place to be. It can be painful, it can be disorienting, but it comes with being alive. And here's what else I want you to know, is that you will be there for an unforeseen amount of time. And so it would be in all of our best interest to understand how we can be comfortable in uncomfortable times. But know this, even though you will be there at the crossroads for an unforeseen amount of time, you have within you a sense of direction. A sense of direction that has always been with you, will always be with you. And when the time is right, and unfortunately not a moment sooner, when the time is right, that sense of direction will guide your feet toward healing, wholeness, and transformation.